Okay, quick question. When you hear the word veteran, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For the next few minutes, we're going to dive into some really important research that breaks down how one single persistent stereotype might be shaping that answer, and why it's a much bigger deal than you think.
This quote right here really cuts straight to the heart of it. Now look, no one's saying post-traumatic stress isn't a real and treatable condition. It is. But this study explores what happens when it becomes the only story we tell about veterans. And as we're about to see, that flawed assumption can cause some very real harm.
So what's the actual problem we're talking about? The researchers call it the trauma default. It's this widespread, almost automatic assumption that the single defining feature of any veteran's life is trauma. It's this one story that ends up overshadowing everything else about who they are as a person.
Let's put the official name on it. It's the trauma by default schema. And really, it's just a mental shortcut. It's a lens that makes people see all veterans as one of two things, either fragile and needing protection, or volatile and potentially dangerous. And the most important phrase here is regardless of their individual history. It's a label that gets slapped on before you even get to know the person.
But here's where it gets really complex. This isn't about people trying to be malicious. Not at all. In fact, the research points to a much trickier problem. It's all about how actions that come from a genuine desire to be supportive can end up having the complete opposite effect.
And this chart just lays out that disconnect perfectly. A civilian might ask really graphic questions about combat because they think they're connecting, but what the research shows is that it usually just feels like an intrusive violation. Or, someone might decide not to set off fireworks on the 4th of July to be careful, but for the veteran, that can feel like their own choice is being taken away, like they're being treated as fragile without even being asked.
And this isn't just about feelings or anecdotes. The researchers put hard data to these perceptions. They actually ran a national survey to see just how common these assumptions and behaviors really are. And, well, the results are pretty eye-opening. So, take a look at this. More than half of civilians surveyed just flat out assume most veterans have PTSD. Almost half of them report making decisions for veterans, like avoiding fireworks. And as you can see, a pretty significant number admit to asking one of the most intrusive questions imaginable. Let's just pause on that for a second. 20%. That's 1 in 5 people. The thing is, this isn't some rare, bizarre occurrence. For many veterans, this is a common, everyday interaction. Whereas civilians' curiosity, probably shaped by movies and TV, just steamrolls over a deeply personal boundary. And behind these numbers, you find real-world consequences. The research uncovered this deep occupational stigma, where employers might see risk instead of incredible potential. And then there's this constant identity conflict, where veterans feel like they have to be either a perfect hero or a fragile victim, with absolutely no room to just be a normal person.
So, if it's so obviously harmful, why does it stick around? Well, the research points to two main forces that kind of work together to keep this single story so dominant in our culture. It's basically a two-part problem that creates a vicious cycle. First, you've got media narratives, movies, news, you name it, that are obsessed with the most sensational, traumatic parts of war. So that's the image we all see. Then, when a civilian who's seen all that media has a real-life interaction with a veteran, it's shaped by those stereotypes, not by genuine curiosity. They just reinforce each other, over and over again.
But here's the really good news, and it's a huge takeaway from the study. This cycle can absolutely be broken. The researchers found that having high-quality, positive, genuine contact with veterans can actually neutralize the harmful effects of those media stereotypes. Real, person-to-person connection is the antidote.
So how do we actually do that? How do we build a better way forward? This research isn't just about pointing out a problem, it's about offering a practical toolkit for change that any of us can use.
For friends and family, the advice is really clear and powerful. The number one rule: ask, don't assume. Instead of guessing what a veteran might need or want, just ask them, hey, are you cool with fireworks? It's about respecting their agency. And just focus on normalizing everyday life, not only their military past. In professional settings, the toolkit looks a little different, but it's built on the exact same ideas. Employers can use strengths-based language, focusing on skills and experience. They can create clear company norms that discourage intrusive questions from coworkers. It's really all about building an environment of professional respect, not of suspicion.
So if we boil this whole thing down, the fundamental shift we need to make is this: decouple support from labeling. You can offer support and have resources available without first making someone accept a label of being damaged or disordered.
This makes it feel so much safer for people to actually seek help if they need it, and it makes all our everyday interactions a whole lot more respectful.
The study really concludes that reintegration flourishes when dignity is the default setting, not some kind of reward for fitting into a stereotype. So the research leaves us with a question we should all probably ask ourselves. When we meet a veteran, what is our default? Is it a stereotype, or is it simply another person with their own unique story?